Night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Get to Googling. How are you, peeps? Appreciate you being with us today on this first day of March. Hope you're doing well. Love to say that. March, that means a couple of things. We know that warmer weather is on the way, and we get to turn the clocks spring forward. We get to spring forward. Get that extra day, or extra hour. I cannot wait.
Now, that's not this weekend, is it? Isn't that still about a week away at least?
March.
Oh, you're just looking forward to the day that happens. I got you.
We're in the month. We're there.
It also means it's almost time for lawn care season, which some people hate that more than others. I tend to like it at the beginning of the year, but as the temperatures get really hot, it obviously becomes a whole lot more miserable. But it's always fun to at least get out there and do it while the weather is a little more temperate.
Well, you're only like, 16, 17 years old. You're a young guy.
I use a push mower. I'm not somebody who uses a riding mower.
Ooh. How much acreage do you have to cut?
I don't know how much I have in acres, but it's a good amount for using a push mower. It's not very big.
First of all, I'm sure it's not even a full acre.
Oh, I'm sure it's not, but I don't even know the exact measurement in acreage.
It's great exercise.
It is great exercise. Keeps me in good enough shape.
You really want to get down to it, you should use one of those old-fashioned push deals that just rolled. It would roll and clip the grass. There was no mower.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was something. Appreciate you being with us on this Friday, March 1st. Bob Kravitz will be joining us. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Casey Bartley. I'm not sure if we've got anything else lined up. I do know that, Brad Nix, how are you, sir? Appreciate you got to see and meet Brad the other night down at Heritage Hills. Wanted to make sure, meant to say that yesterday and I forgot. But great to meet you. Thanks for taking the time to come over to say hi. Last night, Thomas Bryant, the former Hoosier, received his 2023 NBA championship ring. He becomes the 8th former Indiana player to collect an NBA championship. Isaiah Thomas, I think, won 2. Some of those are back in the day. As a matter of fact, there's a couple names that I don't recognize. But, of course, can you name them? It's a tricky deal. But I can tell you, to save you the time to have to do that, some of those are easy to come up with, but OG Anunoby, besides Thomas Bryant, OG Anunoby, Isaiah Thomas, before OG, it was all the way back to Isaiah in the 89 and then 90 seasons, back to back. He wins back-to-back rings there. Before that, people forget about this one a lot, but I'd sent this to someone last night, to Pete last night. Quinn Buckner, he won one with the Celtics. Now, one I didn't realize, Steve Downing won one, as did a guy named John McLaughlin, who won one the year that Bob Knight arrived, so he was just prior to Dick Farley from the 50s, and Herb Schaefer from 49 and 50. Yeah, go way back for that. But congratulations either way. Caitlin Clark announced that she will indeed be leaving college and entering the WNBA draft, which means she will be coming to Indianapolis. The Fever have the number 1 pick, so what will that mean, I wonder, for I'm going to be interested to see how much increased fanfare that has for them. But they should have a hell of a team. They've got Elia Boston on as well. So, they're building it up, man. They're building it up from the bottom. The Chipotle National Finals are coming to Indiana. More specifically, Brownsburg High School, April 4th through the 6th. And that is the high school nationals. It replaces the old Geico High School National Finals, which lasted for 14 years. Last year held in Fort Myers, Florida. The boys and girls fields will be announced in another 12 days on March 13th. But one of those teams that will be in it for certain, on both sides, I might add, Montverde Academy. You'll get to see Liam McNeely, who is headed to play for Indiana when he finishes, but also the number one prospect, Cooper Flagg. You've got Asa Newell. That Montverde team is loaded, and but I cannot imagine how crazy that's going to be as far as the fan output. I mean, it's going to be nuts. I'll have to try to get Kevin Boyle on to come on the show and talk about that. But he did say that when asked about it, he said, we're excited to participate in the Chipotle National Championship. It's Indiana, and no one loves basketball more than their fans. He's got that right, talking about the state of Indiana. So that's going to be a lot of attention. Each game will be on ESPN. So there will be tons of attention with that. There's lots going on. That should be what? That's right around the NCAA National Championship. Is that? I have to look at the dates right before or right after. I know it'll be close. So you got that going for you, which is nice. So all kinds of things happening. Appreciate everybody hitting us up early and often on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Reach out. Just go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door in the best in new and used vehicles. Hoosier Hanks East, where at least for 3 more times you'll find us after the game with Todd Leary. Fred, how are you, sir? Brian, Bob on from Chris from Georgetown. John, Michael, Donald checking in from Atlanta. Most of these fine folks are finding us on YouTube, where you can also do the same. Make sure that if you do, you hit the subscribe button. It benefits us greatly as far as suggesting others find us. Michael Shenanigans is on board. Brian says it's basketball tournament time. Buffalo Bill on with us as well. John, there you go. Gritty says she will be mowing grass on Sunday.
Man,
what?
That
is plans.
Man, that'd be March 3rd. I don't anticipate mowing my grass for at least another couple of weeks, especially if it begins to get consistently warm. But hey, some people got to get out there early and get a head start. I already did some weed pulling, as exciting as that sounds. But hey, you got to do it.
Weed pulling. As I check over the forecast, first of all, today it's still a blustery 43 degrees for a high, which not excited about. But
I think the 70s are in the future, if I'm not mistaken.
They are, albeit briefly. Monday, we should hit our first 70-degree day. Holy moly, 73.
Did we not hit the 70s the other day? Maybe not in your area specifically, but
actually, probably very possibly. Very possible. You might be correct. But it doesn't matter. It got colder and snot after that.
It was just a little tease is all it was.
But this one's not. It goes from 73 and drops to 59. But hey, at least it's in the offing. So looking forward to that. I was looking over the Big Ten standings last night. Rutgers, let's see, did they finish off Michigan? I fell asleep. I was watching that game. Rutgers did not score for the last 5 minutes of the first half, but yet still had their biggest lead, halftime lead over anyone in 8 years. Not that it was that big, but I guess for them it was something to write home about. Washington State gets a win over USC. Just eases across 75-72. Gonzaga, they get a win as well. But, beast. Well, it's not cooperating. Hit the wrong button there. But if anybody knows if Rutgers ended up winning that game last night or not, I'm curious to see because my computer's acting all silly. But the reason I brought it up is because I started looking at the standings. And Indiana would, to really make sure that they do not wind up in that bottom four, they have to win 2 out of their last 3 games. And that would also mean winning at least 1 on the road and beating Michigan State at home, or 2 on the road, however you want to look at it. Ohio State with another win last night, 3-1 since they fired Chris Holtmann. How wild is that? Rutgers, not only did they go get that win, they won by 30. 82-52. So Rutgers continues to move up, or not move up the standings. Everyone's trying to stay out of the that bottom 4. Now, Michigan, they're camped in it. The only way Michigan is lucky that this is this year, not next year. They wouldn't even be playing in the Big Ten tournament. That's not going to be fun when you become the first group of teams that get booted from the tournament and not get to play. But right now, those teams are Michigan, Maryland, Ohio State. See, Indiana's at 7-10. Rutgers is 7-10. Ohio State and Maryland both 7-11. So those 4 teams are going to fight it out. One of them is going to win, but Indiana has 2 road games, so that's going to be a tough one for them to stay out of that. But we'll see. We've got lots more coming up. Bob Kravitz joins us next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with that and much more right after this break.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Right. Here is Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Great. How are you doing?
Were you golfing out in Washington State while you were on vacation?
Yes, I played one time. It was about 55 degrees, and it was one of the most beautiful golf courses I've ever played.
Wow.
Where was it?
In Seattle area. Yeah, it's called Gold Mountain. Just extraordinary.
Beautiful.
What took you out to Washington? Just wanted to go out west somewhere?
My daughter and her husband live out there, so we took a week to see them.
Sweet.
What else is going on, brother? How you been?
Good. I'm gonna write a Caitlin Clark story this morning. Other than that, pretty quiet. I mean, just waiting for the tournament to get started.
The Indiana high school basketball tournament, it's already started.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm at.
Oh, there is a lot going on. Did you see that the Chipotle High School Nationals are coming to Brownsburg?
I missed that somehow.
It's the high school national championships, Montverde and all that stuff.
Oh, that'd be cool. And go out and see McNeely.
Yeah. McNeely, Cooper Flagg, Asa Newell, his whole team of Division I talent.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. And it's going to be where?
Brownsburg High School.
Wow.
All right, here we go, guys.
All right.
Home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is March 1st. To get you started for the weekend, joined now by our good friend Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com, fresh off of a westward Ho vacation.
Yes. Went to Seattle to see my daughter and her husband, also known as my son-in-law, and played a little golf and did a little sightseeing and just had a good old time.
What sights did you see?
Went to the Pike Street Market like everybody else. We went up to a little Nordic town called Polsbo. We played some golf. We did some hiking. I'm very sore, as is my wife. What else did we do? We checked out the underground Seattle. There was a huge fire in I think 1918 that destroyed most of the city, and so they rebuilt on top of the old city, which is pretty cool. So there's like these catacombs and tunnels under the city of Seattle in the Pioneer Square area. And we checked that out. So we were tourists, very much so.
Well, cool. That's something that I don't think people do enough of when they go places, is to really check out all the things that are around them.
We went to a Kraken game. I forgot about that. Went to a Seattle Kraken game against the Vancouver Canucks, and that was.
How could you forget about that?
It was the first day, it was the first day. But how could I forget? I don't know. We sat right at the red line. It was fantastic. Absolutely
awesome. Saw Thomas Bryant received his NBA championship ring last night from in winning the NBA title with Denver.
Yes,
he became that's the 8th different former Indiana player to win an NBA ring. So congratulations to him. Caitlin Clark of course, announced that she will be entering the WNBA draft, which means she will be coming to Indiana. Indianapolis, the Fever have the number 1 pick, and of course, we all know where that's going. So that's a kind of a foregone conclusion. And so I just mentioned before you joined us, I wonder how much is that going to affect? Will they bring fans in? Is that going to?
Gosh, yes.
Do you?
I'm going to make a phone call as soon as we hang up to their ticket office and see how things are going. I would assume that season tickets are flying off the shelves, as it were. She is the greatest draw in sports right now, not just women's sports, but in sports. Nobody moves the needle like Caitlin Clark. So I'm thrilled that she made the decision that she made. There's this weird narrative out there that she's gonna take a pay cut to play pro basketball. But look, she's got advertisers lined up, man, and they're not gonna abandon her for leaving college. They're gonna stay with her for the most part, and I'm sure some new companies will jump on board, and she's going to be the biggest. She's going to be the face of the WNBA in no time flat.
Well, she'll definitely get plenty of new endorsements from Indianapolis area, Indiana businesses for certain. And right now, she's able to dominate. She's obviously the best player in women's college basketball, but she will not be the best player in the WNBA once she gets there. And that there's plenty of players who are probably going to be thinking, hey, I can't wait for my shot to take her down a peg.
Absolutely. No, she, there's been a lot of overstatement. Oh, she's the greatest. Hey, does anybody remember Cheryl Miller? Does anybody remember Maya Moore? How about Lynette Woodard? That's a name from the past. They were great basketball players.
Lynette Woodard, the first female to ever play for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Well, and Diana Taurasi. I mean, she was able. How many players have we seen dominate at the college level, like a Zach Edey, and then go to the pros? And look, she's going to be a special player. There's no question. But this idea that she's going to be the best player in the league the minute she steps on the floor at the St. Vincent Center for practice with the Fever, that I think is unrealistic and unfair to her. She's going to be really good, though. And her and Aaliyah Boston, you look at the history of teams that have had back-to-back number 1 picks, and they win championships. Yeah, and I think this team will be on a championship trajectory, I should say, within a couple of years.
I would imagine it's hard pressed to not start winning when you get that kind of talent coming in. So
and God knows they've worked for it, because they've been the worst team in the WNBA now for several years. I mean, they got to the finals, I believe, in 2017, lost to Minnesota. Since then, they've been pathetic. I mean, they had 3 top 5 picks who all crapped out within a year.
We'll certainly find out. Looking forward to it. That's just all kinds of basketball news for this state. Like I mentioned, the Chipotle National Finals coming. That's a big deal. It was the Geico Nationals for 14 years prior to that, and I guarantee you the crowd will be nothing like they've ever seen.
Right. When exactly is that, Jim?
That is April 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Okay. I will write that down.
And I will look forward to seeing you there. Save me a seat.
I'll do that.
Yeah. The attendance will be off the charts, off the hook, because of, and I'm not going to lie, Liam McNeely going to Indiana will be a big part of that. But
absolutely,
you've got Cooper Flagg and Asa Newell and all these other dudes. And let me tell you, there's a reason Cooper Flagg is the number one sitting at the top. I've seen him play. The dude is
good, huh?
He's a game changer. He sticks out, and but it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that to see that. So
that'll be a blast. And I mean, I would primarily go for McNeely. Obviously, he's the entire class for Woody next year, if I'm not mistaken. But Cooper Flagg, I've read up on this kid, and he sounds like he's going to be the next one.
Yeah, he's a good one. Speaking of Woody, I noticed that he talked about not having Xavier Johnson and how that would have been the difference between Indiana being, I guess, great and what they aren't. And
is he high?
Someone kindly put up a stat on the Hoosier.com and the forums pages that shows that in the last 3 years, Indiana is exactly 16-18 with Xavier Johnson and 12-11 without him.
Yeah.
So
now, I mean, clearly they need a point guard. I mean, it's been unfair to Trey Galloway to make him the facilitator on this team. And, Gabe Cupps, in 2 years, maybe a nice little point guard, maybe a backup, but, he's been thrown to the wolves pretty much. Look, having a decent Xavier Johnson would have helped, but the idea that is somehow the difference between making the NCAA tournament and not making it is you can tell that Woody is feeling the heat. You really can. I mean, that whole quote about how I blame myself. Except I don't miss free throws and I don't miss 3-pointers. And I was
in the same sentence.
He just can't help himself. But I don't think you can do anything rash at this point. People are like, "You're gonna fire him." I'm like, nah, you got to give him. You got to give him a little more time. It's going to be tough because Ware is going to leave. Mbako, you don't know. Although it's looking more and more like he'll stick around if he's smart. It's gonna be a rough go next year unless McNeely is all that.
Well, not only that, they have to do a substantially better job in the postseason than they did last year. And what is there to make you think that, or make anyone think that that's going to happen? They're going to have, we don't even know the holes that they're going to have. We know that there are certain people that will be leaving that we already do know, but there's probably leave that we don't know yet. And that means that entire season is going to be based on what they're able to do there. And
the transfer portal, they've got to be big in the transfer portal. They've got to have a ton of success there. I mean, we saw, granted, Butler has fallen apart here in February, but they went from being a really bad team to one that was competitive for an NCAA tournament berth until this last month or so. I think they're 2-6, but he did it with all transfer portal guys. So, there's no excuse, especially if you're Indiana with the money and everything else that you've got. There's no excuse for not being able to turn this thing around quickly.
I say that a lot because it's true. If I were an Indiana fan or looking at it from a fan standpoint, my biggest concern would be, okay, so does next year it become a lame duck season for Woody? And if so, that Indiana class of 25 is a really good one. And where would that leave Indiana? You've got guys like Jalen Harrelson and Trent Sisley and those guys that are in that class. And if Indiana has not exactly done a great job of recruiting the state of Indiana.
No, which is surprising. But yeah, I just don't think, they've gone through so many coaches in the last couple of years. It's funny, by the way, I just read a story about Archie Miller out at Rhode Island, and they hate him. And all the comments were the same comments we heard when he was at Indiana, that he doesn't seem like he's involved. He doesn't do anything on campus. He doesn't do anything.
I read the same thing. I
saw that. Wow, this guy hasn't learned anything. But yeah, no, I think you got to hold on to Woody for at least let him get through that 25 with that 25 class. You can't win. You can't establish any continuity when you're constantly changing coaches the way they have.
But can you establish any continuity when the reason you're changing coaches is because there is zero success in that area?
No, I agree with that. But like you said, they got a good class coming in at 25.
No, the state of Indiana has a good class.
I thought you were talking about IU. Okay,
No. The state of Indiana has a good class of guys like Jalen Harrelson. They have zero commitments for that class, which that's a year away. So it's not surprising. Yeah. But Trent Sisley being recruited by Purdue, Indiana, Notre Dame, Michigan State. Jalen Harrelson is the highest recruit in that class. It goes to La Lumiere now, unfortunately. But 6'7" point guard. Well, he's something. But that's what I meant. It's like if you wait. It's a tricky deal. I understand nothing's going to happen, and I understand that. But then when you don't, by not doing that, now you're basically, it's a lame duck season. Yeah. And then if change is coming, that will probably push players elsewhere. So now you look at another lost season potentially.
You do, and that's one of the problems that you have, and I could see it coming that when you have a coach who's 65, 66, it's going to be tough to recruit because you're going to constantly and all the noise that always surrounds the Indiana coach when there's a lack of success. If I'm a recruit, I'm looking at a 66 or 67-year-old coach who may be a lame duck. Do I want to come to Indiana? I don't know. I mean, this is a very dicey situation that Dolson has found himself in.
Yeah, and again, I will say over and over, there's not going to be a change this year for next season. I would be shocked. So I'm not saying that. I am not even suggesting that. But I'm still going to talk about the things that might happen by not doing it, by doing it. I understand the reasons both ways, but that's what I'm here for, to be the antagonist.
The voice of the people. That's what you are. You are the voice of the people.
That definitely not the voice of reason.
No,
that's for certain.
We got that established.
So you've been on vacation for a week. What is up next for the great Bob Kravitz?
Well, we got the combine going on now. I don't know if I'll be back. I'm going to do something as soon as we get off. I'm going to do something on Caitlin Clark coming to Indiana, which is enormously good news. And the Pacers are locked in a death struggle in the playoff. For the playoffs, they're currently 7th or 6th. I know Miami lost last night, and the Pacers won 2 days ago. So that I'm sure that moved them up because you got 4 teams that are all stuck at 24 losses or so. So that's going to be interesting. And so there's plenty going on. And then, of course, the NCAA the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament coming up. I'm bummed that it's in out in Minneapolis. That makes absolutely no sense. But thank you, Kevin Warren.
There you go. Yeah. Imagine that. He still reaches back from Chicago and puts it on us. Speaking of the combine, is this the last year in Indy?
No, one more year. They're through I believe 25, and then I've got to think they're going to move to LA. It's a shame. It's a shame, but
why LA?
Why not LA? You've got. I'm going to sneeze here in about 2 seconds, so excuse me.
They don't have St. Elmo's. There you go. That's why not. So you can't do the St. Elmo's challenge.
I know. Look, I personally think we've got the perfect setup here. With all the medical stuff, it's all right downtown, but they want to go to a nicer place, weather-wise, and it hasn't been great here. Usually isn't in February, March. So I think they're going to go to LA with the new SoFi and all the stuff they have there. So I think Indianapolis has been a great host of the combine for many, many years. But
what are they not a great host of?
Oh, you're right. I mean, the All-Star game was a slam dunk. They did a great job. This town just does it right. But I think people want to be able to go outside and feel the sun on their face, and this isn't the place for that right at this time of year.
Hey, speaking Ohio State, Kevin brings them up, says they're looking at Sean Miller. But Ohio State is 3-1 under their interim coach.
Yeah, Diebler.
Ohio State. So if you take away his 3-1 before he took over, that means they were 4-10. Mm-hmm. They were a 4 in the conference. They were 4-10 in conference play, and he's gone 3-1. That at that stage, you can't say that's accidental. Over four.
Yeah, but you always get a bump with a new coach. If he's able to sustain this, then you think, well, maybe this guy's got some magic in a bottle. But it's Ohio.
They did it at Michigan State too. That's one of the wins came at Michigan State.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. But
they beat Purdue.
They did beat Purdue, but it's Ohio State. They got more money than God. I think they'll go out and almost regardless of what Diebler does down the stretch, I think they're going to go for a name.
Do they, with the issues that Sean Miller, you want to talk about some baggage, while people may not consider it baggage, but with the baggage that he has from his time at Arizona, where he was obviously involved, he escaped any repercussions there other than losing his job. But would they go after a guy like that, or do they care?
They don't care, because all the stuff he was doing back then, and it was wrong.
It's legal now.
It's all legal. It's the Wild West now. And at this point, I remember when Kelvin came here, and we were, I remember that first press conference. I was getting booed by the fans for asking. For asking all these, difficult questions about his graduation rate and the cheating and everything else. It was a big deal back then. Now it's not. Now everything that you did 10 years ago that was illegal or improper, now it's proper. Now it's legal. So, look, Sean Miller's a hell of a coach and a hell of a recruiter, and it would not shock me in the slightest to see him in Columbus.
Yeah, which is ironic because isn't that the job that his brother coveted so much back in the day?
He did when he was there under Thad, if I'm not mistaken.
But I think that's a job that he really wanted.
Yeah, too bad he didn't get it.
Boy, too bad for a lot of people. I'm sure Indiana fans think that way as well. Currently up in Lil Rhodey, as I affectionately call him, at Rhode Island, and not exactly lighting the world on fire there. As let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've lost 5 straight. So he's rolling. He's rolling.
He's got it under control. I mean, Archie is just a dead fish.
Oh, I don't know how you could say that, John. Roll that.
And the proud thing that I am of our first stop at the University of Dayton was we didn't stop. Sometimes you break through and you make the tournament, and then they don't hear from you for a couple years. Sometimes you break through and you continue to go. And I think that is the thing I was most proud of at Dayton was the consistency that we had, and tremendous support, unbelievable people, great friends. And then I moved to a second spot and had a press conference. And I was popular. Only at the beginning.
Because you hadn't lost everything yet.
It's hard. And now I stand here. Maybe a little bit more flawed. Maybe a little bit more imperfect. Maybe don't have the shine I once had. But I will tell you this. At this stop as I speak here, this is the best I've ever been in my life. The most ready I've ever been in my life, and the most excited I've ever been in my life to take something on like this.
It's always enjoyable. I love it.
He just inspires me.
I'm telling you.
I just want to run through a wall for that guy.
How could you not? I mean, oh my goodness. Yeah. Hey, but you know what? You got to hand it to him. The dude is worth more money than a lot of people that I know. And he did it by not being good.
Yeah. I mean, you look, when he came here from Dayton, he was the obvious choice, was he not? I mean, he was
Fred Glass's obvious choice because he's the only person that
but if you go back, you know, you're looking.
He was hot.
He was the hot candidate. He was the hot candidate.
But here's my point to that is, though, I think that had any research been done at all, some true research, that wouldn't have happened. Just like had Rhode Island, I don't think the athletic directors talk to each other. And if they do, then they're not being honest with each other, and they're just saying the kind things to not cost somebody a job or whatever. They're not saying, well, let me be truthful with you. The players were glad that he left. The community was glad that he left. The school was glad that he left. He wasn't involved. They don't say those things apparently.
Well, because they're not financially inspired to say nasty things. They want them to go out and get another job because it costs them less, does it not?
Absolutely. But if I'm the AD at, say, Rhode Island and Indiana, and I'm not, maybe it's not cool to talk to the former AD just like in other jobs, but there's still, you can talk to plenty of people, whether it's certain people in the media. You can find people if you are truly interested in finding out information.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Because again, those ADs have financial reasons to say nice things. But you're right. If you talk to, people in the NIL collective and media and other people, I mean, I just remember that first press conference and what a dead fish he was. And he didn't smile one friggin' time. And I thought, ugh, just ugh. And he never threw himself into the community and both the Bloomington community and the IU community. He never threw himself into that, and I think there was a real disconnect between him and people around the state.
Let's see. Phillips says that I kept saying the same thing in regards to Tom Allen, that they were not going to fire him until the last game, and then I changed my mind. He's comparing it to Mike Woodson, but there's a couple of differences. Number one, there was a greater time disparity, but I was also I just didn't think that they were going to pull the trigger on a $20 million buyout on Tom Allen, which eventually got. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that they still did it at 15 million. I'll be honest with you, but there's more to it with Mike Woodson. He's been here for less time. Number one, right. Number two, this would be the third consecutive basketball coach Indiana has had to buy out. That is not great. And then thirdly, Scott Dolson would be on the hook because he gave Tom Crean that extended contract for the buyout.
Tom Allen.
Tom Allen, rather. He hired Mike Woodson, then gave him $1 million raise. Yeah, so he's on the hook.
I want to work for Dolson. I can just be average and get $1 million a year raise. How cool would that?
I want to work for Indiana and get fired.
Oh, absolutely. That would be a great employment strategy.
It would be a wealthy one.
Hell yeah.
Archie Miller walked away with about 30 million. So there's that. What's up next for you, brother?
Well, I'm going to write about Caitlin. I'm going to call the ticket office, see what's going on. She's speaking today at noon out in Iowa. So I'm going to try to access that interview. And we'll just kind of go from there. We got some big basketball games. We got Purdue and Michigan State on Saturday. I might go and do that. So I'll be staying busy.
Good to hear it. Great to have you back.
Great to be back.
Sourpuss.
What's that?
Missed that sourpuss. What's the hat? Golf course.
It's Hillcrest.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great to have you, brother. As always, just talking to you.
All right, man. Good seeing you too.
The great Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. Make sure you go there. He's got plenty of content on everything and regarding the Hoosier State, Colts, Pacers, Hoosiers, Boilers. He's got it all. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Chop Shop, where you can find Inside Indiana men's basketball each Monday night with Don Fisher and Mike Woodson. Also, you can find yourself some Wagyu steaks there to purchase and take home from the Voiles family Wagyu line that is grown right here in Mitchell, Indiana at the farm. So you got that going for you. If you ever come back to Bloomington, I'll get you some of those, Bob.
Sounds good.
Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, yada, yada.
You got to start splitting up Kravitz.
Well, I didn't realize we went that long. I'll be honest with you.
It would have been fine until you started doing comments. That's why I was like, okay, he's getting lost in comments. He's not going to break.
He's not going to break. He's broken. He's a broken man.
It honestly wouldn't be as big of a deal if I wasn't separating segments for Fort Wayne. That's the only reason it really is a big deal.
Well, I'll make this one a quick one.
Yeah, but that's not the point. It's the segment itself that will be annoying, is what I'm trying to say, because sometimes the long ones don't send properly and have to fool around.
Oh, was not aware of that. Five Lefts. I know you're a big Woody fan, and I know you think I that I'm trying to get him fired, which is absolutely not true. That's why I go out of my way a lot of times to say certain things. It's not my job to get anyone hired, fired, whatever. But I am going to point out truths, facts. And a lot of times those truths or facts are not in accordance with opinions of other people. Doesn't make mine right. But I'm going to express them. But to say that he's going to make the tournament next season is
there's really nothing to base it off of right now.
Yes,
I would say.
Because first
we
of
don't
all,
know we don't know what anything is going to look like at the moment.
No, exactly. Have no idea what team he's going to have. Who's going to be his starting point guard? It's not going to be Gabe Cupps. I mean, if it is, then
I've said this before. If he does what he needs to do in the offseason and gets the missing pieces he needs,
like he did not do last year,
yes, then
that's
when
my
you can
point.
Giving those expectations.
That's what I base it on. They needed it last year, couldn't get it done. So
we'll have to see what happens.
They're going to need it worse this year, in my opinion. And that's why I base on track record. And the track record right now is of not getting it done. And the fact that he continues to make these excuses, Xavier thing.
This will just be like a 2-minute segment.
Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. It's March 1st. It's just, I feel springy already, although I'm freezing. It's not that warm, but that's okay. We're in March. We know what's coming. Time change, that I'm looking forward to. I'm sick and tired of sunset at 6:30. So it's on the way, babe. It's on the way. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty. For those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Good time to buy a house. As a matter of fact, reach out to her. And just finished up with Bob Kravitz. Zach Osterman will be joining us in the next hour, as will Casey Bartley. We'll get caught up on Big Ten play here of late, and this coming up this weekend. I mentioned previously, if you're just joining us, the Chipotle National Finals coming to Indianapolis, Brownsburg High School, more specifically, April 4th, 5th, and 6th. Montverde Academy, number 1 and undefeated, of course, leading that lineup with Indiana-bound Liam McNeely, Duke-bound Cooper Flagg, Georgia-bound Asa Newell. I can't remember the kid that's going to Baylor. And there's another one that's falling off of my mind right now. Trey Galloway for Indiana, he's not a point guard. He's been kind of forced into that role, but amazingly, had he probably held that role from the beginning of the year, he would probably set a record. He is 17 assists after his 12 assist performance in the last game. He is currently 17 assists away from Quinn Buckner's single season assist record. Now, I'm going to say that that's a little disingenuous because I think that's Big Ten record. Either way, there's a difference in games. They play 20 Big Ten games now. I don't think that's not the number that used to be played. So there is a difference in that. And that stuff matters to me. Like Caitlin Clark. She's a great player. I'm not saying anything negative about her not being a great. She's a freaking phenomenal player, generational player. But she is not. She just broke the NCAA women's scoring record, which only started in 1982. Plum from where was she? Oregon State. But anyway, and then she just broke Lynette Woodard's major college record, which was the AIAW stuff, but before the NCAA took over. But here's one thing. She has made over 500 3-point shots, which shows a greatness, first of all. But take 500 points off of her tally because none of those other players had a 3-point shot. If you take 500 points, because that's what it would be, that's 1,500 points alone just off of 3-point shots. So nearly half of her points come from that. We've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up, including Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, Casey Bartley. Back with all that and much more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for... That's the best thing you can ever do.
If I'd have done that during Bob Kravitz, it wouldn't have changed anything.
That may have, but maybe not. But on that hard break, that was perfect.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, God dang. Greg Doyle. I guess people really, I really wonder what I guess it doesn't matter. I think there's he's probably has the right amount of people that like him and don't like him.
Who, Doyle?
Yeah. He calls her the Tiger Woods of women's basketball, the Serena Williams of her sport. Think those comparisons are getting messy? Watch this. She's the Lionel Messi. Oh, my God.
Oh, what the hell is that?
See, okay. She is dominant.
Good morning, Zach.
Hey.
I got to get back over here. Zachary, how are you, sir?
Good, you?
I can't complain. Nobody wants to listen to it, man.
Zach, I'm 2 episodes from finishing Ted Lasso. I've heard the ending is fantastic. Is that the truth?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I know that it kind of didn't evolve the way everyone hoped, but I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm a little hoarse. I've been sick pretty much all week, so.
I'm a fan of it. Oh, man.
All right, 30 seconds.
Your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday and first day of March. Appreciate you being with us as always. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, the IU beat writer for the Star, joining us now. Before I get to that, Zach, news coming out that about the what is now the Chipotle Nationals, replacing the Geico Nationals, is coming to Indy, Brownsburg High School, specifically 4th through the 6th of April. Montverde Academy, amongst a slew of other incredible great teams, including La Lumiere, who will probably be there. Liam McNeely, of course, heading to Indiana, a part of that, but Cooper Flagg, Ace Anu, all these other guys. That's a big deal. And I think especially with Liam McNeely on that roster, the fan output is going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right, and I think it's, just broadly, I don't think there's anything wrong with moving some of these events around. I know, excuse me, I'm sorry. The NIT has moved a little bit. Vegas they were in last year, they'll be in Indy this year. I know that's probably a little bit different. That's probably a little bit more built around trying to rebuild some energy behind the NIT, and I don't know if that'll work, but I think just generally, for a long time it feels like we've locked some of these basketball events in one place, and I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of kicking them around and getting them to different places in front of different fan bases. And obviously, the other thing I would say too is prep basketball is obviously very familiar with the city of Indianapolis. Indianapolis, whether it was the old AMC, whether it's the EYBL stuff that's up in Westfield now. Obviously, the field house out in Fishers. I mean, Indianapolis is very familiar with prep basketball and how to stage events like that, the infrastructure necessary, the scheduling, the people who can maybe move things from one place to another the way they need to. There's, like I said, it's just kind of it's a good city for it. So.
Well, exactly. It's a great city for that, as it already hosts so many other things. And this is something I could see becoming more permanent in Indy, the Indy area, just because of the fan support. Now, of course, if there's no team related activity, it may not make it as big, but this is it's an opportunity. A lot of people don't get to see that level of play.
Yeah, I know. And again, it's not like Indy is foreign to these events. I mean, you think back to, I'm not thinking the Adidas May Classic. Forgive me. I was trying to say the Adidas Invitational. The May Classic was obviously in the spring period. The Invitational was always in July. And that was, one of the signature events on Adidas's July calendar, right up there with the Vegas tournaments. And, you would see, I mean, I can remember watching Gabe York, Eric Armstead, Shabazz Muhammad, the Harrison twins that went to Kentucky. You'd get every major college coach coming through Indianapolis. I think everybody just kind of wore out that Jimmy John's on 86th Street. And then obviously as things kind of shifted either up to Fishers or up to Westfield, you still kind of get the same thing. So it's, the importance, obviously there's the appeal for fans. The importance for these events is that there are people who know how to run them and know how to manage them and can kind of pull them off effectively. And Indy's got, a whole host of those people. And so I don't think there's going to be any, I suspect that experience here is going to be, pretty roundly positive.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. We're also in the midst of Indiana high school basketball tournament play. And I know that there was on social media a lot of talk because the IU staff was not seen out at any of the games, which they could have been anywhere. I mean, someplace else recruiting, I don't know. But the fans are, it doesn't seem like it's not taking much to get Indiana fans kind of in an uproar right now.
No, I mean, listen, it's the whole sectional thing. I get where people come from with that. I do think that, I don't believe in performative recruiting as a thing. I think it gets really overblown in college athletics, college basketball in particular. But I do understand, maybe the desire to sort of see that representation out on sectional weekend, it being, just a sort of, not just physically, but culturally important, kind of annual spot on the calendar in the state. On the other hand, coaches get a certain number of days. Indiana's going to have a long-term plan, not just around, I know a lot of this was probably sort of centered on Sisley and Mullins, but, Indiana's going to have a plan around not just those guys, but, anything they may be targeting in, here at the tail end of 2024. We've seen this staff obviously move quickly and effectively with guys whose recruitments were open in the spring, maybe unexpectedly. Tamar Bates, Malik Renew, Mackenzie Mbako. And you're obviously also going to need, unless something's changed and I've misunderstood it, you're going to need some of that time for portal days as well, and attacking the portal, which is something that, when you consider that Indiana's got one player likely, obviously, to go to the NBA draft in Khalil Ware, and has got, two more, and Anthony Walker and Xavier Johnson, who are just out of eligibility after this season, and then always the possibility of another potential draft entrant, or somebody who at least wants to consider the draft process, or somebody who wants to go in the portal, whatever it is. Indiana's probably going to need to be active in the portal. And so then maybe they feel, forgive me, that they need to, sort of hold their days for that. But this is one of those where, I feel like a lot of the time when these things kind of erupt, these sort of, these tempests that maybe sometimes are tempests in teacups, so to speak, kind of erupt on social media. I feel like I'm one of the people that just sort of says, hey, I don't really, I don't know if this is quite as big of a deal as you're making it out to be. I do kind of get, people's frustration here if Indiana staff just wasn't anywhere in the midst of sectional week, because that is sort of one of those that's a little bit, it's one of those where it's almost kind of about honoring the ceremony of it, the cultural importance of it. And then obviously, like, there is still recruiting value there. Matt Painter was out. I think Micah Shrewsbury was out. There is an extent,
especially when, like, you look at Indiana, they've got a week between games.
Yeah, I mean, not quite. No, they play Tuesday and then Saturday. But there's enough of a gap there that I do sort of, again, I understand where it comes from, at least to some extent, from an IU fan perspective. And this is one of those where I get it. I also suspect if we sat down with Mike Woodson and his staff, they'd say, well, here's why we were doing this way or this that way. And there would be more to it than just nobody felt like getting in the car on Tuesday night. It's or Wednesday night.
But with so many instances of people thinking that he's kind of doesn't get certain things, that just seems to add to that pile.
Possibly. This is where, though, I don't think it would be healthy to just be doing stuff to try and refute some sort of public when you start saying, well, I'm going to go do this because I'm going to, I feel like I have to prove to people that, I'm not disengaged with this or whatever, like that's not a good motivation. Like, that's not a good reason to burn up a recruiting day, to burn up an evaluation day. It's sort of one of those like proactive, reactive things. The proactive piece of this, or the proactive sort of, I guess, I don't know what the word would be. The sort of proactive move here would have been just to say it's sectionals. We've got some big targets that we're really trying to push for. I'm going to make sure I'm in front of at least one of those guys, and I'm going to be out, and the IU, the IU pullover is going to be there, and people are going to get pictures. It's Indiana basketball. It's IU. They're there, all that. The reactive thing would be, I'm going to go out just to prove something, sort of like to my critics or whatever. I don't think that's a good idea either, if that makes any sense. Now, again, I'm sitting here and saying, I understand people who maybe were frustrated about this specifically. There have been plenty of other times where I've said, I don't think this is as big of a deal as maybe, social media is making out, or, some fans make out. This is one where I kind of understand it. My point with what you said is just sort of, I think if you get into a place where you start doing stuff to quote unquote, like prove critics wrong, that's where like your motivations maybe start to become a little bit sort of self-defeating.
Right. But what, I understand that and I agree with that. But I guess what I was saying is, what if that is, there is some truth to that, that doesn't, the appearance is that maybe that is not locked in on what all is needed, the time that is needed to put into all of these types of things, that we know that it takes a ton of time. These coaches, the demand on the coaches is immense. Let me be the first to say that. And nobody wants to go sit in a high school gym on a night off. I get that too. Unfortunately, those are parts of the job that you're paid well to do. And I think that's also why people look at it that way.
No, I think like I said, I think that's fair. And I think this particular date on the calendar, sectionals being such an important piece of all this, like this is one where I understand people's point, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. It's like there are plenty of times where it's sort of like, hey, listen, if you're privy to every recruiting meeting and every strategy and this and that, you'd probably find there's a reason for most stuff. I do think this is one where it's sort of a layup. It's just sort of like, hey, just circle this date on the calendar and make sure that this is one where, we're out and about, and we are, we're obviously using it for a purpose. Like it's we're not just going to go to any random section. We're going to see Trent Sisley, or we're going to see Braylon Mullins, or whoever. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those where it's sort of like, just make sure that you're there. Make sure that you kind of make the most of what should be, at least in my mind anyway, again, just kind of a bit of a layup of what is the word I'm looking for? A bit of a layup of a sort of, I guess, public event. I'm not sure. Look, it's one of those things where it really does. Like, I want to be careful about this, because it really does kind of walk a fine line. I really don't think performative recruiting is a productive thing, and I haven't for a while. And I think particularly in the NIL portal, player movement era, it's even less important than it used to be like, oh, I'm at the gym at 7 a.m. and I'm the last one to leave at midnight and all this kind of stuff. Like, no, just do the job the way you want to do the job. Do the job the way you do it best. Like, if you're Steve Spurrier and at 6 o'clock in the afternoon you're on the golf course drinking a beer, like that's fine. And if you're the one who shows up at 6 and leaves at 11, if that's your best workflow process, that's fine too. I think that a lot of the time, this whole idea of like, well, I'm just going to get out and visit because someone else is visiting, and I'm just going to prove that, we want to be in front of this, or we want to constantly just sort of be, making sure that the public sees us doing this. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that sectional weekend is a little bit different. It is culturally important in the state. There is a purpose behind it, in that there are a couple of high-profile players in what is, now effectively, from a recruiting perspective, the rising senior class that you are pursuing, that are also top targets for Purdue, for Notre Dame, some others, etc. So there would be a purpose to being out anyway. It just really wouldn't hurt. It's one of those where, like I said, it's sort of a layup that you either make it or you miss it. I get this one from people's perspective.
Indiana next, they have to travel to take on a Maryland team that is, I think, 11-5 at home in conference play. Maryland is one of those teams fighting to stay out of the bottom of the Big Ten. Being in that Lonely Four club, I'll call it the Lonely Four teams club, who has to play on the first day. And if this were next year, would not even be playing in the Big Ten tournament. Teams like Michigan for sure, but the other three spots may be still up in the air. I don't know if Rutgers is kind of locked into that, but Indiana is a team that is fighting to stay out of that, along with Maryland. I think they're probably going to have to win 2 out of their last 3 to stay out of that bottom 4 and to keep from playing on the first day in the Big Ten tournament. But for this team, how big of a deal is that really? Playing on that first day means you're playing a lesser opponent, which gives you a better chance to win. So I don't know if this, as far as how important that truly is for this particular Indiana team, whether they play the first day or not. It's a perception thing for sure. But other than that, I don't know.
I mean, you still just don't want to make your life any more difficult than you have to. And if you're Indiana, and we've heard Mike Woodson say this, we've heard Indiana's players say this, that, the Big Ten tournament is kind of the season at this point in terms of, getting to a place where everyone is in the right sort of frame of mind to attack the Big Ten tournament and to try and make something out of that and maybe salvage something from an otherwise frustrating season. And, any game you don't have to play in Minneapolis, if that is your mindset, any game you don't have to play in Minneapolis is a bonus. And I do think, you mentioned it, like Indiana and Maryland. Indiana's 7-10, Maryland's 7-11 in the conference. It's also worth saying Indiana's already beaten Maryland once. Indiana owns the tiebreakers with, if you look at where the Big Ten standings are right now, Penn State's 8-10, Rutgers is 7-10, Indiana's 7-10, Maryland's 7-11, Ohio State's 7-11. Indiana will not have a tiebreaker against Rutgers or Penn State in a head-to-head. Things will be different if you get into 3- and 4-way ties. Indiana, if they can beat Maryland on Sunday, will have the tiebreaker with both teams behind them, Maryland and Ohio State, because they'll have swept the season series. And so it at least kind of gives you, if you're Indiana, it helps you. Obviously, it sort of elevates, your potential seeding. And it also just sort of, at least in theory, kind of puts one team behind you. Because if Indiana were able to beat Maryland in this game, then not only would Indiana have the season tiebreaker against Maryland, Indiana could not finish with a worse record than Maryland, because Maryland would have 12 Big Ten losses and Indiana would only be able to finish with at most 12. It's also, I don't know, Maryland is a funny team to me because, they started 4-4, and I remember when they came to Bloomington and they lost that game by 12. But for a lot of that game, they were down 18, 20, 22 points. They didn't lead ever. I think Indiana at one point led by 22 or 23. And it sort of felt like Maryland was just kind of all at sea a little bit. And then they beat Penn State at home the following midweek. And that was the start of a run where they won 7 games out of 9, including an upset win at Illinois. And you kind of thought, hey, maybe they're pulling together a little bit, and then they lost a couple, but then they won at Iowa. They battered Nebraska at home, and it seemed like they'd found a little something. They've only won 2 games in all of February. Now, one of those was on the road at Rutgers by 17 points, so give them credit for that. But the flip side is they lost at home to Rutgers. They lost to Ohio State. They just lost at home to Northwestern. They've only won 1 home game since the start of February. That was against Iowa. They are just dismal offensively at the moment. Like if you look at their Big Ten only numbers, they're 13th in effective field goal percentage, 14th in 3-point percentage, 13th in 2-point percentage. They are just a really, really bad offensive team at the moment. And if you look at kind of some of their individuals, Jameer Young's never really found his shot this season. Julian Reese has been good, but maybe not like quite. He maybe has not gone up that level we thought he might. And again, if you're Indiana, like there's just I'm sort of fascinated just generally by where Indiana is, because that we've had we've seen Indiana have a couple, 3 of these moments now that, the way they beat Iowa, we thought maybe that's them turning a corner, and then they just kind of fell flat against Penn State. And then the way they beat Ohio State, we thought, well, maybe that's them picking themselves back up. And then they lost 4 straight. But then they come home and they play Wisconsin, and frankly, they were much deserved victors in that game. Now you got games here against I know they're road games, and so Indiana will be, the underdog in both, justifiably. But 2 teams you've already beaten this season, 2 teams that aren't necessarily going to have, crazy athletic or personnel matchups that you can't manage as long as you're healthy. Indiana has talked about sort of trying, Mike Woodson's words were kind of validate what they did against Wisconsin. They've talked about trying to pull themselves together, make a little bit of a run at the end of the season, at very least just sort of show progress. It's like there's never a point in the season where, progress is a bad thing. Maybe it can come too late and you can be frustrated by that, but there's never a point where you just say, well, this is worthless. This growth is worthless, or positive momentum has no value here. Can Indiana build some of that in these next couple of games, or are we going to see Indiana just kind of stumble and fall flat again, and just sort of, limp quietly into what I think we can all presume at that point would be a pretty brief postseason? I'm just kind of fascinated where Indiana goes over the next week or so.
Zach, obviously the game coming up, but what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that. It's just wrapping up basketball season, getting ready for Minneapolis in the Big Ten tournament, and then sort of figuring out what comes beyond that. I would say, even if Indiana were to kind of put together a big run here, I would be kind of surprised if there'd be much appetite for participating in the NIT based on just kind of my perception of things. So I think it may be kind of either NCAA tournament or just sort of quietly put it down for Indiana here as we enter the spring. But we'll see.
Probably, and any chance of hosting in the NIT was probably be quashed by the women playing NCAA tournament games that may interfere with that possibility scheduling wise. So, I mean, I don't know that for sure, but it would probably throw a wrench into that as well.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. That's definitely something that, would obviously have to be navigated around. And we've seen that at different times with schools having to figure it out. Like I said, my sense, and listen, if Indiana wins these next 3, maybe wins a couple in the Big Ten tournament, then falls short and just, winds up, kind of not necessarily on the bubble, but just kind of winds up maybe feeling a little bit more momentum, maybe attitudes would change. My sense is kind of just if this season does just sort of, peter out to a rather dull conclusion, I just wouldn't be surprised if there's just, even if invited, and obviously maybe they wouldn't be, but even if invited, I'm not sure Indiana would have a ton of appetite for the NIT. So.
Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Make sure you're following him, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, as always.
Thank you. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload. Back with that and more, brought to you by our good friends at the Ugly Grouper on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Go down and have yourselves a grouper sandwich, whether you live down there or traveling. It's the spot to be. Anna Maria Island, just west of Sarasota. Back with Casey right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Sorry to have you waiting there for a while, Casey.
No, you're good. How's it going?
It's going good.
Did y'all ever figure out what the fire alarm was?
I don't know that we ever confirmed it, but I've heard the most common thing I've heard is someone pulled it or the elevator had smoke in it or something like that.
Well, that's a new one. I didn't hear that about the elevator. But
Mike, what's
then I remember you had mentioned something about a concession stand issue.
Yeah, but that came from Todd. I don't know. It's just, who knows? Somebody probably pulled the damn thing. I don't know why you would do that in a game is beyond me.
It helped.
What would possess you to think that? It's crazy. It's a bit crazy. 5 lefts. What did I revise Just I can't. You got to give me some context, man. What did I say there?
What do you mean? When,
I'm talking to Five Left. He said, "I'm the."
That's also a comment from a while back, so like you probably just missed the context.
The revision.
Yeah, that comment is from
9/18. Yeah.
Yeah, that was almost an hour ago.
Or I'm just curious on what I was. Just what
it was probably whenever you were addressing him during a commercial break, because you did. Remember?
Yes. Shaka is not coming. No, but he could probably go wherever he wants to go.
Also, Shaka is a little overrated. He's made a career off of one Final Four run, and what has he done since then?
Well, Marquette ain't exactly dog crap right now.
Oh, they've been great in his regular seasons, but tell me the last time he's won an NCAA tournament game. Because it's not
when's the last time John Calipari won an NCAA tournament game?
Last year.
Yeah, I'm a Purdue guy. I'm not going to
Shaka Smart
use the tournament to validate anyone.
Shaka Smart has not been past the round of 32 since his Final Four run.
Hey, there's something to be said for that. That's every time I hear someone say the word Steve Alford, I'm like, dude,
Steve
just
Alford's
go do
been
some
farther
research.
than Shaka Smart twice in the past 10 years. So just want to throw that out there. People love to throw Shaka's name out. Not here necessarily, but in general.
All right, here we go. No, that's later too. If you recall, Jim, I told you it was going to be like this. I said before the season began that the media covering the team were sharpening their knives.
Here we go. 5 seconds.
Honda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. It's March 1st. Appreciate you being with us. For all of you that live down in southern Indiana, Bubba's 33. Located right off of I-65 on Veterans Parkway. It's an incredible place to go watch a game. Food is incredible. I miss it. I miss getting to go there as often as I used to. But that's that. Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload, the Rivals affiliate for Purdue, joins us. And I saw your buddy Matt Painter the other night.
Watching Sicily.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's quite the treat down there. Surprised he got exited out of the high school tournament so quickly.
Yeah, well, I was at that game, and Princeton was just so much more athletic than Heritage Hills. I mean, Trent Sicily has. I hate to say this because I don't mean to knock his team, but he doesn't have the support. Right. They had actually beaten that team, I think, a week prior. But they were just Princeton was too athletic, and they seemed like they were just chasing the whole time. So it was an uphill battle for them. But all kinds of things popping. The Chipotle National Finals coming to Brownsburg High School. How about that? With that, and that's something I could see staying around. With it being in Indiana, of course, there would always, if La Lumiere's in it, you're probably always going to have a couple of Indiana kids in it that are from Indiana. And then recruiting wise, I don't know if Indiana can stay on that upper level. Purdue doesn't really recruit from that style, so. But I'm looking forward to it. It's let me tell you, it is not high school basketball. It is it's a level above, and but getting to see guys at that level, that you're going to be watching the following year, whether it's Cooper Flagg, who was the real deal. Yeah, without question.
Anything that's not overtime elite, I will be happy to watch. They came for an exhibition tournament, I don't know, down in Indy. So I got to watch Cannon Catchings, but that was a joke of a production as it comes to, high school talent going up against each other. That was a TV broadcast more than a team. So I'm all for anything else high school basketball related.
We'll look forward to it, but we've got more college ball to happen this year as the season is starting to wind down. The Big Ten that's locked up. Purdue is not going to be beaten there. They have a game with Illinois left, but even if they lost that game, it's not going to be enough. Too little, too late for the Illini. I was pretty solid that the Big Ten was going to get 6 teams in, and that's still possible, but I don't feel quite as solidified in that as I once did.
Yeah, it's going to take some. The biggest issue is Big Ten has kind of bolstered itself by just being good enough in the middle, kind of the Big 12 thing, where every game is an opportunity to help your resume. And there's not a whole bunch of that in the Big Ten. There's not a whole bunch of really good wins to go grab. And then, Michigan State's floundering. Iowa's floundered all season. And then after Minnesota, you can't even, you're looking at teams that are barely above 500. So it is a down Big Ten year. There's no reason to argue in it. If anything, you could say Wisconsin's putting themselves in a little bit of jeopardy with the way they're finishing the season.
You think?
They look like a lock.
I don't recall a team just driving off the cliff like that. That they were 8-1 in Big Ten play, led the Big Ten for weeks. It was the loss to Purdue started that just downward spiral for Wisconsin, and then they recently lost at Indiana. But the Big Ten is still number 2 in the conference net rankings, and that boggles my mind that they are ahead of the SEC.
Yeah, I would definitely say the top end of the SEC is much better than the Big Ten. Obviously, Purdue's probably the best team out of all of those, and especially if you're looking at computers and whatnot. But just if you're considering national title contenders, it's hard to argue for anyone besides Purdue. I mean, I get that there are fans of the Illinois squad, but the way that team plays defense right now, I don't know how you could feel comfortable picking them in any scenario. But when you look at the SEC, those are some dangerous teams. Tennessee, Alabama.
I see 7 NCAA tournament teams there.
In the SEC?
Yeah. Maybe 7. A lot of people are going to think Ole Miss will get in at 19-9, but I don't think that their record is very strong.
No, but it's just the top end talent of the SEC far outweighs anything with the Big Ten, with Wisconsin falling like it has, with Illinois just option. Their defense right now is atrocious. The idea that Brad Underwood is going to bat for anyone on that team to get a defensive player of the year coming off of giving up 97 points to Minnesota.
That kind of stands out, doesn't it?
Wild. Yeah, it's not a good conference. It hasn't been that good of a conference all year. And you could have talked me into Northwestern going on a deep run in the NCAA tournament, but they lose Ty Berry now. So even the bright spots besides pretty much Purdue all have either major issues or, it would be a incredible turnaround for them to just get to the second weekend.
If I put you on the spot right now and says, all right, give me your final 4. Actually, I should say, give me your final 3, because I know that Purdue, you'll have Purdue in there. But the other
not
3
this year
spots,
win, Jim.
Oh, I know. That's the thing. I'm not of the mind that they won't make it to the Final Four. I am of the mind that they won't win a national championship because of the things I've talked about previously with, going back and looking at the 5 previous national champions. They had 4 NBA draft picks on every one of those teams. And I just don't think that that's accidental. But regardless of that,
do you not think Braden Smith will be in the NBA? I don't think he'll be a high pick, but I think he'll play in the league a little.
I don't. I don't. I think that
there's physical limitations.
But it'll be a easier question to answer after next season, after Zach Edey's gone.
Right.
Does he step up and elevate his game more, which they will need? Does it take a step back? So, I mean, far be it from me. I'm not an NBA scout, and I don't pretend to be. I don't think that would be the case. But we shall see. But as far as the Final Four, man, Kansas is the most Kansas is the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the top 25. Every time I think that they are like a Final Four-ish lock, they lose, and I'm like, man,
they've got 4 guys. So, like, they've got 4 really good guys, and if anything
goes that helps. Wrong, that's big.
It helps, but it also, like, if anything goes wrong, like one of them gets in foul trouble, one of them gets hurt, like it's hard to count on that for 3 straight weekends. I find it really hard not to go chalk with the top 3. I think Houston, Purdue, UConn has been just head and shoulders all season above everyone else, and I think there are real flaws everywhere else.
Houston's the first team I kick out of that.
Really?
Yeah.
But is that just because you feel bad about them? Like, there can't be another team you feel particularly better about, is there?
No, it's just that I think that like their half-court offense isn't great. The way they got beat by Kansas, I was like, wow. So this all comes down to matchups.
Sure.
Because I said previously there were 14. Hell, there's 16 teams that I think that can make the Final Four. And that starts with, Kentucky. Kentucky going up. Anybody in that top 16 of the AP top 25, I think, is more than capable of winding up in the Final Four. Houston, Purdue, UConn, of course, Tennessee, Marquette. John says no because they don't get past the Sweet 16. So I will take his advice and I'll kick them out, and that knocks it down to 15. You've got Arizona, Kansas, Iowa State is
Iowa State.
Dark horse. Do not sleep on Iowa State. They're in the Big 12. They're 21-6 playing in that league. And they've just they have to be the most quietly ranked number 8 team in the country.
Second best defense, according to Ken Palm. Proven winner of a coach. Yeah, I definitely like that team. Otzelberger.
That's going to be my dark horse to make the Final Four. And then, of course, you've got Duke and North Carolina from the ACC that are having good years, both also at 21-6. So that's going to be interesting to see. Auburn. Creighton is not one. I'm kicking them out.
Really?
Yeah. Illinois, I'm kicking them out.
I'm kicking Illinois out for sure.
Baylor. Yeah, I'm not so.
Baylor played Houston tough. They made some boneheaded plays. I don't like Alabama. I would not consider those big guys are not winning a national title. They are boneheaded, make poor plays. They're fake tough, and they're just not. But the guard play at Alabama is great. And
just to talk about the Final Four is almost a joke after last year when St. Mary's and FAU make it. And I don't mean that as a slight to them. I mean, it just shows that, hey, you can't count. There's just so many different teams. That's why I'm like, all right, no chalk. their team rankings. People get to ride on rankings. Marquette could be one of those. John could be onto something. You never know. They play in the Big East, which is it's been a pretty strong league this year.
Yeah. But North Carolina's there. RJ Davis can get hot. It's going to be interesting to see how much.
I think they're better than Duke.
Yeah, it's pretty close to me. I think I trust that more. I think I will take the defensive-minded team in the tournament over the offensive one if I have a choice. I think it'll be interesting. You know, when you're talking about UConn and Purdue, especially, they've kind of worn the crown all season. UConn, especially, obviously, you bring the title back. Does that wear on a team? Do you get to the tournament and you feel exhausted with it? Is it more of a burden than an opportunity when you get to March Madness? Same thing with Purdue. You know, they fought all year to get back to the exact place last year to kind of make up for it. Is that extra juice or is that extra pressure? There's a lot of people on that Purdue roster that are, I'm going to talk to them today about the Michigan State game, and I'm talking to two of the seniors, and like, I'm going to ask them what defines their legacy. And you got to think at the back of their mind, even if they don't say it, like, this tournament run is going to define a lot of things for Zach Edey, Ethan Moore, and Mason Gillis, Matt Painter as a whole. And those guys all, part of the problem with loving your coach so much is that you really do care what happens and what people say about them. So is that added pressure stimulant when it comes to March, or is it something that holds you back?
And when you talk to Purdue players, or even I haven't asked Matt this, but as far as pressure for this year, you said it. If not this year, when?
Yeah,
and that has to be. There's no way that, I know you can try not to think about it, but there's no way that it cannot sneak into your subconscious.
Yeah, I mean, Pater said it a couple times about Edey. Like, I've got this once in a generational guy. We've got to be better for him. And I think on a personal level, that's more pressure than even, let alone, you know, doing it for Gene Katie or the fan base, everything else. Like, there's so many areas where this Purdue team is just, it is maybe the most fascinating step into March for any program team that I can remember in a long time. Because it's similar to Tony Bennett and Virginia, obviously, because they were so good, but the legacy of Virginia didn't quite stretch so much into the basketball world as this little corner here in Indiana.
And, you know, you look at the men's and the women's, there's a huge difference to me in Purdue has what will be the 2-time reigning player of the year. Iowa will also have the reigning 2-time player of the year. But there's a difference between Purdue is looked at as I can't use the word shoe-in, but they are looked at by many people as a Final Four team, and rightfully so. But not everybody, not that same amount of people feel that way about the Iowa women's team.
Right.
They're not even the best in their own conference.
Right. Women's basketball is a strange oddity where it's like everything's kind of, it's even more extreme. Like, the really good teams are the really good teams. And there's like 8 teams that even have a chance. The only reason Iowa has a chance is because they have the greatest college women's player of all time. And the idea that's
the same thing. You could say that for Purdue, though. I mean, if you don't have Zach Edey on that, I mean, and that goes for a lot of teams. I mean, you take their best player off. Well, who the hell are they? I mean, you can have
yes. Well, I guess you could say Iowa has another girl who's pretty much an All-American too.
Oh yeah, she scored 40. She had the scoring record until Caitlin Clark went off, and she pulled a Larry Bird. Kevin McHale had the scoring record for 2 weeks once for Boston, and Bird said, "Yeah, that's enough of that."
Yeah, so Purdue has 2 All-Americans, but like, there's no arguing that like the ship sails with Edey. Like, he's the one holding that afloat and directing them forward. So yeah, it is I don't think, because personally, you know, I'm invested, but like, I've been doing this as a job for a while. The fan part of me is very small compared to what it was, but there will be a hollow if this Purdue team doesn't get to the Final Four this season. I don't think Purdue fans are emotionally prepared to once again have to deal with the ultimate disappointment, which seems to be the only thing that gets dealt in March for Purdue fans. And it's a hard conversation and it's a hard truth to stare down. And it becomes even worse when well, Edie's leaving after this year. So like the best path that Purdue has is leaving with the 7'4" guy from Canada.
Yeah. And that adds to the stress level for the fans, I'm sure. Because it's not just that they haven't been to the Final Four, but they haven't been to the Elite Eight, but 3 times since 1980.
2019. I mean, the Oregon the Oregon game. So like the last time they were there, it ended in that fashion. Like the Purdue fans have been put through the ringer. There's no denying that.
And then looking at the Big Ten itself, I've got to be honest, man. I just don't see another team. There's not a second team that I would have any thoughts of saying, yeah, okay, I think that they can make the Big Ten or the Final Four. Illinois, would obviously be that team if they were, but
and Michigan State is the other choice if you're going to just pick one if you have to.
Oh, hell no. Not this year. Normally, yes. Normally, I would agree with you. Normally, I would agree with you.
I get it because I'm not making a push for anyone. But if you're going to talk to anyone else as a third option, it's Tyson Walker, regardless of Spartans and anything else. It's just there's nothing else there. It would have been Northwestern for me if Ty Berry was healthy. But that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. There, boy, did they lose a lot because Northwestern had that's hard. Nobody has 4 freaking guards to guard 4 freaking successful guards. Nobody has that. Yeah. Langford, Berry, and Boo Booey match up with anyone in the country, and now it's not there. So like that one definitely hurts a lot if you have a rooting interest for the Big Ten. And Northwestern was just fun to watch. I mean, they gave Purdue 2 of the best games of the season. Like it's disappointing. But if you're talking about a team that can do that, in theory, Michigan State has 3 guards that can be really good. Illinois, you just have to talk yourself into believing the mental fortitude of that team and them turning it on. And that's not a place I'm comfortable or want to be.
And other than that, there's just not a lot that I think Big Ten fans are going to be looking forward to. And for Indiana fans, I'm not sure that they could stomach pulling for Purdue to make it. I'm fairly positive. They couldn't. I'm usually a Big Ten guy. I'm usually a Big Ten person that I'd rather see the Big Ten do well. That's the league that I cover. And, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just looking forward to this tournament. It's going to be exciting. Now, I'm not really looking forward to the Big Ten tournament. I'm having, as a matter of fact, I'm having second thoughts about even going.
I think you don't want to go spend March up in Minnesota.
Been there 3 times in the last 2 years.
It's a lot of Minnesota.
Not Minnesota, but for the conference media days deal. So I haven't looked at the weather though, what it's going to be like, expected to be up there. That would be interesting.
Well, I know it's going to be decent in Chicago next week, so I'm imagining in 2 weeks it'll be fine.
Chicago
can happen.
Oh, hey, we still got to take a break. I didn't realize that. Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back. Casey Bartley from Boiler Uploads with us, and we'll talk about what's coming up this weekend in the college action right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. I didn't know that. Sorry, Johnny boy.
Sorry. Got to crack the whip sometimes.
Hey, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't.
What is going on this week?
I don't know who I'm picking as my national champion this year. Part of me says picking somebody to repeat like UConn.
It's hard, right?
It's hard, but at the same time, it hasn't happened since Florida, and I feel like it's bound to happen again eventually. So,
UConn but is this
be my pick?
But is this UConn team one of those that you feel that strongly about? And
I think I do, though, because you got to think last year they won it as a 4 seed, I believe. And this year they've been dominant all season long. And I don't think there's not win it all, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a logical argument against them.
Yeah, they haven't shown they got beat by Creighton on the road, but I mean, you don't have any road games in the NCAA tournament.
9-1 in their last 10 games, so they're not having any problems right now. They've won 19 straight at home.
If I were picking today, I'd pick UConn. We'll see if that changes in the next couple of weeks.
Non-conference strength of schedule, 206th. Strength of schedule, 111th.
Yeah, but at this point in the season, does that matter?
Not at the end of the day.
I don't know what matters in March anymore.
Purdue also 9-1 in their last 10 games.
I just need a Final Four.
I think what it is just like if you've got a coach who just knows how to navigate the 2 games in a short amount of time and then move into another, it's a very different. It's nothing like the regular season at all. Yeah. So you just have to have a coach that knows how to navigate that, and there's not very many who do know how to.
Here you go, Purdue non-conference strength of schedule first, strength of schedule second.
Really good. It's like number 2. The only thing that worries me about Purdue is if they run into a team that likes to run and gun. And
buddy, I would run Purdue's ass off the floor.
It's not about running. It's, are you going to treat this like a not normal basketball game? And that's how you beat Purdue.
Yes.
Like Alabama ran,
Auburn,
but they didn't
I feel
treat
like
it
would
like
be a very tough matchup for Purdue.
Their guards aren't that athletic.
Alabama's lost 8 times.
Yeah,
10 seconds, guys. We only got about 3 minutes here.
On the table, a part of the Wild Food Group is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, 1st of March. Appreciate you being with us. Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload. A few minutes left here. Alabama, shockingly, in quad one, 3-7.
Tough to beat good teams.
So, yeah, and that just shows me that they're more of a style. Getting up and down and shooting the 3, it's worked for them, but I just don't see that working 6 games in a row, and that's what it has to be to win a national championship. You said something a minute ago, going into break, just give me a Final Four. Will that be enough for Purdue fans? They've only been to 2 Final Fours ever. The last one was in 1980, 43 years ago. Never won a national championship, but with the Zach Edey and all of that, it's like it's now or never for everything, not just a Final Four, but to get that first national championship.
So I'll put it this way and try not to be too gross about it, but like, it won't cure the wound, but it'll relieve the pressure. And I think that'll be it. Like, obviously this team is good enough to win a national title. Obviously that's the end goal. But this Purdue team has been just so torn up by March. The near miss against Oregon, that rebound, the long pass, the upsets in March, just like getting to the Final Four, it's going to relieve the stigma on Matt Painter, on the program, on Zach Edey, in a way that will free up things for the future to not have to constantly hear about it. And yes, I think that would be enough, but this team is obviously good enough to win it all, and the best chance Matt Painter's ever had to win it all going into March.
Without question. I mean, there is not a number, a metric that is a negative. I just mentioned Alabama 3-7 in quad one games, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth in a lot of rankings. But yet that's too many quad one losses. That means you don't play well against the big boys. And
to them, it's big men. The big men are not good enough. They're not up to like real talent. They're not disciplined. They don't really provide you much in spacing or on the defensive end. Like, they've got a bunch of 6'10", 6'11" guys, and for the most part, they are all very limited and or harmful to their team, which is sad because Mark Sears is one of the best players in college basketball. There's no doubt about it. He was terrific against Purdue up in Toronto, but they don't have the bigs to survive a conference run or a tournament run.
Brother, I appreciate it as always. Look forward to doing it again next week as we get closer and closer to the promised land of college basketball season, and we're here for it.
All right, thank you very much.
Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload. Boiler fans and basketball fans, whatever, just make sure you give Casey a follow as well. I can't thank everybody enough. Bob Kravitz from bobkravitz.com. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, and of course, Casey. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. And most importantly, each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Looking forward to tomorrow. Indiana takes on, Maryland tomorrow? I almost forgot. After the game, of course, with Todd Leary, follows the game. So make sure you tune in to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on YouTube, and if you haven't already, please go subscribe there, and so you'll be never missing an episode or an issue of anything. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.